Hello everyone, this is Harding Chronicles. Welcome to the 23rd episode of Per Ardua Ad Astra. And today we are diving into the Khorana programs of scholars. This prestigious program is open to pre-final years undergraduate, that is third and the final year MBBS students, and postgraduate students across a wide range of disciplines, and from engineering and basic sciences to medicine across India. And today, we have with us someone very special, Dr. Anmol Kaur, who has been selected for the Khorana Scholars for 2025. In this conversation, we'll be exploring her journey from the results to the experiences at Yale School of Medicine. Uh, you can check out PAA 21 for detailed insights into the application process. We'll mention the link of the video in the description box. Go check that out. And in today's episode, we'll dive deeper into her experience at Yale School of Medicine. So without further ado, let's get started. Dee, can you elaborate your entire timeline of the stay at Yale? Like include shortlisting, from shortlisting and reaching out to professors, and what did your timeline look like?
So the Corona applications deadline during my tenure was 7th of October 2025, and then we got the results on 29th January 2026. And from then on, it was a very haphazard process because I did have my final year exams coming up. So we had a stipulated time period of like 4 to 6 weeks to finalize the mentors, but I wanted to get done with it as soon as possible. So while you're submitting the application for Khorana, they ask you for 5 mentors you'd be interested in working with, whose lab interests align with the interest that you want to pursue. So during those, while I was filling my application, I looked out for labs that I would be interested in working with. And once I got selected, then I followed up with those professors. So I was interested in bioinformatics. Uh, I wanted to get into wet lab stuff, which was which was something that I had done previously, but I did not have a lot of exposure to. So I looked for labs that were aligned with those. So the lab I ended up going to was focused on proteomics, and I got to do cell culture, Western blots, silver staining, and then I also did pull downs. So while you're filling the application, you can branch out, see what labs are doing. It's an extensive process. You have to look at various labs, check out papers from different mentors, and then you get it. When you're filling out the application, so you have a paragraph, you have an essay where you have to mention what are your research interests. So when you know, okay, so for me it was like I'm interested in neurology, and then I can kind of narrow it down from there. So अगर आपको पता है कि मैं ये करना चाहूँगी once I'm there, if I get selected, then you go on. So go to Google Scholar, read some articles, or you can also go to like labs have web pages. You can go there, check that out if that's possible for you. But I think Google Scholar and following the research of, like, you have to kind of maintain a continuum and see what research is going on, and then go on from there.
The next question: after you submitted your application, what was the waiting and post-selection phase like for you? Like the traveling, the accommodation?
It's an interesting question. So I got my result, as I mentioned, on January 29th, and then I left India on June 9th. So during this process, I had my final year exams. I had to figure out my visa situation. I had to figure out my accommodation. I had to figure out final year exams, which is like a lot. So the most important thing is to finalize the mentor that you want to work with. And once you have that acceptance, it is easier to move on from there. I got my visa around mid of April because J1 visa can be expedited, and that's visa that Khorana scholars mostly go on for. And then they book the air tickets for you. The rest of the formalities are largely taken care of by them. And other than that, figuring out accommodation is a big thing because you're going in a foreign country where, like for me, I did not know anybody there. So I had to go on to WhatsApp groups, go on to Facebook groups, and then move on from there. And I did end up having a bit of a situation with my accommodation. I had to stay at the place where I was staying for like 5 days. Then I shifted again because I did not know who I was subletting this apartment from, and they did not leave it in a good condition. It was not what it had been portrayed out to be. So in such situations, it's helpful if you can get in touch with people who are already there and somebody you know who can go and check out the apartment or the place where you're going to stay at for you. I'm not good at cooking, but you have to learn how to cook to survive. So I have like very basic survival cooking skills. Whatever you cook, you eat. uh, so yes, but you can also order from outside. I'm a vegetarian, so for me that was tricky because there are only a limited number of options. I do not eat egg, so that's like half the bakery items are excluded because it's a very generalized item there. So cooking, it's like a hit and trial process. Someday I would make something very good. I would click a pizza, send it to my parents. Okay, I made this. The next day I would make something absolutely not edible, and that would be so much stuff wasted. So it's a very interesting process. But if you know how to cook, you can have a good experience. Also, you can order from outside.
How did you figure out the research areas you wanted to explore? Like, how did you find a professor whose work aligned with your interests, and what skills helped you get there?
Mm. So for me, I knew I was interested in neurology since first year, and then I had done a little work here and there in different things, and I had tried out my hand at various things. So I kind of knew where I wanted to go, but not exactly. So then I kind of had to narrow it down from there. That these are the areas that I want to pursue, and then look out for those labs who were doing the kind of stuff that I wanted to do. But I also wanted a broader experience and not just narrow it down to just one skill. So it's important that when you are sending out application for Khorana, that you branch out a little, although not a lot, but you need to branch out just so that you are covering your bases. Also, once you have submitted the application, it's not necessary that you have to stick to the five professors that you are submitting. After the application is selected, Khorana reaches out to you, the people from Khorana, and then you can submit a list of professors that you might now want to work with if your interests have changed. So that's also an option.
What did a typical day look like for you during your time in the US?
So a big advantage was that the weekends were off. Nobody worked on the weekends. During the weekdays, I used to wake up around 6:37, and then I had to get to the lab by 9, and then 9 to 5 we would be at the lab. Uh, we would get back, like I would get back to my apartment around 5:36. Then I would usually make dinner for myself, go around for a walk, and by the end, like wind down a little, go to sleep. So it kinds of get monotonous, but it is also for me it was a break from my routine because I have not stayed a lot outside of my home or outside of the hostel. So this was a great leap for me to get out of my comfort zone. I was doing everything by myself. I had not done laundry by myself before, so I had to learn how to do that. So yeah, it's a very freeing experience, but also it makes you appreciate the little things in life.
Really. Could you tell us about the project you worked on at Yale?
So my project was on the labeling of proteins and enrichment of proteins in cells. And another project that I worked on was identification of biomarkers for stratification of stroke subtypes. And the skills that I acquired during this time were Western blot, pull downs, and cell culture. We were trying to compare, contrast various labeling methods of proteins in vitro, and then see if those results couldn't be replicated in vivo. So it was a very nice experience. It was very different from what I have previously done.
What kind of techniques or skills did you learn during your time there?
Yeah. So as I said, the primary skills that I gained were in wet lab, and then I also got to try my hand at a little bit of strata, SPSS. So for wet lab skills, again, cell culture, pull downs, silver staining, Western blots, that kind of stuff. Also, I got to see primary cell culture where you take the brain cells from a live mouse and then you culture them. So that was very exciting. I had not seen a mouse culture before, so I got to see that as well, and how mice are maintained, and it's an entire process. You have to feed them, you have to clean, you have to maintain the cages clean. That's very interesting. Although you do need to be certified for that, so I didn't get to do that, but I did get to observe it. I had a great lab experience. The people at my lab were very warm, very welcoming. when I had issues with my accommodation, they offered me like I could stay at their place, which was very generous. So I think finding a good lab and a lab with a good culture is very important because you are going in a foreign place, you do not know anybody. So that kind of becomes your I don't know, like the safe space that you have. Like if I had any issue, I knew that I could reach out to my lab members, and they provided that support system for me. So it is important that you go into a lab with a good culture because I have heard about people who did not end up at a lab with a good culture and then they had some issues later on. So it's important.
You, what is that one piece of advice or feedback from your mentor that has stayed with you?
So my mentor told me to. I was getting very very worried about that I'm not going to get results in the 3 months, and my mentor said that you should focus more on the process than the final results because see how far you've come from where you came and where you are at now. So that was very important for me to hear at that point, and that is something that has stayed with me.
How's the research culture different in US and as compared to in India?
Um, it is very different. So a lot of critical thinking is involved. For me, what I found most enticing was that we would sit at the same table, everybody, there was no hierarchy, and we would discuss ideas, and no ideas were shot down. So they would encourage you to ask questions, get engaged, bring up points from your own side. Even if you were wrong, you would not be shot down. So that was very interesting.
What was the most challenging part of this entire journey for you and how did you deal with it?
For me, the most difficult part was finding accommodation because I was not on a proper lease basis. I was subletting because I could not get a lease for the stipulated duration that I was there. So I had to sublet and then I had to shift like multiple times, and that was difficult for me. Yeah.
Dee, what was your favorite non-academic moment from your stay at here?
So we celebrated Diwali at my mentor's house, and I had not celebrated Diwali away from home ever. So that was a very
First
generous
time.
offer from him that he invited everybody from the lab, and he had a great spread. We enjoyed a lot there.
How was this experience shape you personally and professionally?
Professionally, I think it is a very unparalleled experience. You cannot get anything better than this at this stage of your career. It makes you think way outside the box. Like it will expand your horizons exponentially. And other than that, I think you get to meet great people. You get to see how great minds think. That is something very unique and something that I really appreciated after going there. And then personally, I think it made me appreciate the little things that we take for granted. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do my laundry. So I had to live independently. I had to take care of those things. So it made me independent. It also made me enjoy my own company because for like the first few weeks I got there, I didn't know anybody. So I had to kind of sit with myself and be with my thoughts. So that was a very invigorating experience.
See, for students aspiring to apply this program like the Khorana Scholarship, how early should they ideally start preparing?
I do not have a definitive answer for that because it depends. I would suggest apply as soon as you can for second, third year students. That's the most optimal time because you do not have a lot of academic pressure. So as soon as you can apply. So if you're planning to apply in the second year, get started on it right from the beginning of the second year. Try to get some things in the bank, do some research. Even if you do something in your own college, you have a little review here or something, some sort of training from there. It helps. It all adds up. So that's very important. But I think second and third year are the optimal timelines to apply.
And finally, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone in their pre-final year who is just starting this journey?
If you are just starting the journey, don't be disheartened. Nobody is on the right track. Everybody has a unique path. And even if you do not know what you want to do right now, I think that's the most exciting things because you get to see what all is out there. So don't be disheartened by anything. Just go and make an attempt at anything that you want to.
And lastly, what do you aspire to pursue in the future?
I'm very interested in neurology and neuroscience. So I want to kind of continue down the physician scientist track and pursue the same. get good personalized letters of recommendation. I feel that is very important. That is probably as important as your essays. And they do not have to be from a big name. As long as they're personalized, as long as they're speaking well for you, it is important.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Singh.
Gitanjali. Thank you, Etsy.
And that brings us to the end of today's video. A huge thank to Dee for sharing her amazing journey and insights with us. And if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, do like, comment, and share, and subscribe to Harding Chronicles. Also, drop if you have any questions in the comment box. We'd love to hear from you.